David was 32 years old. He believed life was finally moving in the right direction. Then everything changed in a single day. That morning he lost his job. That afternoon he failed another interview. That evening his girlfriend quietly ended their relationship. When he got home, the apartment felt strangely quiet. He placed his keys on the table. Then he sat down. He didn't turn on the lights. Outside, the city sounded exactly the same. Cars passed. People laughed. Someone was walking a dog. Life kept moving. His life didn't. Later that night, David walked to a small bus stop near his apartment. He sat alone, staring at the empty road. For the first time in his life, he whispered, "Maybe I'm just not good enough." He didn't know someone had been sitting beside him for several minutes. An old man slowly turned toward him. Then he asked, "Can I tell you a story?" The old man didn't try to comfort David. He didn't say, "Everything will be okay." He didn't say, "Don't worry." Instead, he looked at the empty road and smiled. Then he asked, "Can I ask you something?" David gave a small nod. He didn't really care, but he had nowhere else to be. The old man looked down the street. Then he asked, "Have you ever taken the wrong train?" And later realized it was the better one. David frowned. "I don't think so." The old man laughed softly. "Most people don't. They only remember the train they missed. They rarely remember where the new one took them." David looked at him for a moment. He wasn't sure what the old man meant, but for the first time that day he wasn't thinking about himself. He was listening. The old man nodded slowly. "Good. Then let me tell you a story." The old man looked down the road. Then he began. "When I was young, I knew a carpenter named Thomas. He worked with wood for more than 30 years. One morning, his workshop burned down. Everything was gone. His tools, his plans, his savings. People came to comfort him. They said, 'I'm so sorry.' They thought his life was over. Thomas only smiled. He said maybe. A few months later, a friend invited him to help build a small school. He almost said no, but he needed the money, so he accepted. At that school, he met an architect. The architect liked his work. A year later, they started a business together. 10 years passed. They built schools, libraries, and hospitals across the state. One day, someone asked Thomas what was the best thing that ever happened to you. He smiled. "My workshop burned down." The old man looked at David. Then he asked quietly, "What if the fire wasn't the end? What if it was only a different beginning?" David looked down. He didn't answer. After a long silence, he finally smiled, just a little. "Nice story," he said, "but it doesn't help me." The old man laughed. "I didn't think it would. Not today." The old man stood up. The bus finally arrived. Before getting on, he looked back at David. Then he said, "You don't need today's answer. You only need tomorrow's step." The doors closed. The bus slowly disappeared into the night. David sat there for another 10 minutes. He kept thinking about those words. They didn't solve his problems. His job was still gone. His apartment was still quiet. His future was still uncertain. But something had changed. For the first time, he stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, he asked, "What should I do tomorrow?" The next morning, his alarm rang at exactly 7. David wanted to stay in bed. He almost did. Then he remembered the old man's words, not today's answer, tomorrow's step. He got up. He made a cup of coffee. He opened his laptop. He updated his resume. Then he sent one job application, just one. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't a breakthrough. Nobody called. Nobody replied. But before going to bed, David smiled to himself. He hadn't changed his life. He had simply taken the next step, and somehow that felt enough. 3 months passed, not fast, not slowly, just one ordinary day after another. David kept sending applications. Some companies never replied. Some said no. A few invited him for interviews. Nothing felt different. One rainy Thursday, his phone finally rang. It wasn't his dream job. It was a small local company. The salary wasn't impressive. The office was old. The position wasn't exciting. David almost said no. Then he remembered the old man's words. You only need tomorrow's step. So he accepted. The first few weeks were quiet. He finished his work. He went home. Nothing special happened. One afternoon, the office coffee machine stopped working. Everyone laughed. Someone joked, I guess we're drinking water today. A woman standing nearby started laughing. So much for surviving Monday. David laughed too. It was the first real laugh he had shared with someone in months. Her name was Emma. She worked at the desk across from him. She wasn't his manager. She wasn't famous. She wasn't trying to change his life. She was simply kind. A few days later, Emma noticed David reading during lunch. What are you reading? She asked. David showed her the book. I've been trying to learn something new. Emma smiled. Good. Keep going. You never know where one small skill might take you. David smiled politely. He thanked her. Then he went back to his sandwich. He had no idea that this short conversation would quietly change the direction of his life. Autumn arrived. The mornings became colder. The trees outside the office slowly turned orange. Life finally felt steady, not exciting, just steady. One afternoon, Emma walked over with 2 cups of coffee. She placed one on David's desk. I found something, she said. I thought of you. She showed him a free evening course. It was about project management, nothing fancy, nothing famous, just a small class at the local community college. David looked at the screen, then he smiled. I don't think I'm ready. Emma shrugged. Maybe, but you don't have to be ready. You only have to begin. David laughed. That sounds familiar. Emma smiled. My grandfather used to say that. That evening, David sat at home looking at the course page. The class started next Monday. He almost closed the laptop. Then he remembered another Monday, the bus stop, the old man, one small step. He took a deep breath. Then he clicked register. It didn't feel exciting. It felt ordinary, almost too ordinary to matter. Every Tuesday evening, David left work 30 minutes early. He sat in a small classroom with 12 strangers. Some were younger, some were older. Everyone was trying to improve something. Week after week, he kept showing up. Sometimes he felt tired. Sometimes he wanted to stay home, but he went anyway. One evening, the teacher announced a group project. David was nervous. He hadn't worked with new people in a long time. After class, one teammate smiled. I like the way you solve problems. We're hiring soon. You should apply. David smiled politely. Thanks. He didn't think much about it. He had heard kind words before. But this time, life was quietly opening another door. Almost 2 years passed. Not everything was perfect. David still had difficult days. Some plans failed. Some interviews still ended with no. But something inside him had become quieter. He no longer believed that every closed door meant the end. One Friday afternoon, his new company sent him downtown for a client meeting. As he walked toward the office building, he suddenly stopped. He knew this place. Across the street stood the company that had rejected him 2 years earlier. For a long moment, David simply looked at it. He expected to feel angry. He expected to remember the disappointment. Instead, he smiled. A memory returned. The bus stop, the old man, the story, one small step. Emma, the evening course, the classroom, the group project, the new job. One by one, the pieces fit together. David whispered, if they had hired me, I would never have met Emma. I would never have taken that class. And I would never be standing here today. For years, he believed that company had closed a door. Now he realized it had quietly opened another one. He looked up at the tall glass building. Then he laughed softly, not at the company, not at himself, at life, because for the first time he understood something the old man had known all along. You cannot judge one chapter while you're still living the story. A few weeks later, David finished work a little earlier than usual. Instead of driving home, he took a different road. Without thinking, he stopped at the same bus stop. The old bench was still there. The same trees stood beside the road. The evening traffic sounded exactly the same. He sat down quietly. For several minutes he said nothing. He wondered if the old man had ever come back. He never knew his name. He never saw him again. But somehow, that didn't matter anymore. David looked at the empty seat beside him. Then he smiled. "You were right," he said softly. "I wanted answers. But what I really needed was another step." A city bus pulled up to the stop. The doors opened. People stepped off. Others stepped on. Then the bus drove away. Life kept moving, just as it always had. The difference was, David was moving with it. He stood up. He adjusted the strap of his backpack. Then he started walking toward home, not quickly, not slowly, just one step after another. For a long time, David believed life was asking him, "Why aren't you there yet?" Now, he believed life was asking a different question. "Will you keep walking?" Maybe we all spend too much time waiting for life to make sense. Maybe meaning doesn't arrive first. Maybe it quietly grows with every step we choose to take. So if today doesn't make sense, keep walking. If one door closes, keep walking. If you feel lost, keep walking. One day you may look back and realize the road was leading you all along. Thank you for listening. Take one small step today. Your future self may understand it long before you do.